How's it going, everyone? We're back with another video. 4 or 5 things that we've learned so far through spring ball. I think it's been like a week and a day or two of practice, maybe a week and a half at this point. It's April 1st. There'll be no April Fool's jokes in this video, so don't worry. I hate that. Yeah, we're about a week in. It's exciting. It's really good to see, Kiffin out of practice, Sam Leavitt, and all the new faces officially in the uniform. So that is good to see. It's a sign of the new season really shaping up even though it's still really early on. It doesn't start to feel real till fall ball, but that's a long ways away. Just want to come on here and maybe do like a quick recap of what at least I've learned so far. I obviously don't have, any connections or anybody, out there at practice, but I find that everyone that is out there on practice, they don't want to tweet what they see really. You got to watch their 35-minute to an hour video each day where they drop like, oh, this guy looked the part, this guy, oh, he's fast. I know a lot of you people don't have the time to look through that. I shouldn't, but sadly I do. And I have watched all of these videos from everyone that's really been out there at practice. So I'll just give you a quick recap of what I've heard from them essentially, if you don't have the time to listen through it yourself. And then I got some thoughts and opinion, and then I'll layer some of this practice footage on there because I've watched every single second of all the muted practice footage. So yeah, first things first, I think the worst news so far out of camp, you've all already heard this, I'm sure. Gabe Relaford, maybe Saturday, tore his ACL at practice, so that sucks bad. I think was probably the most underrated player on the team last year, just from the stance of I don't think people appreciated what he did. I thought there was a huge drop off in pass rush last year when he wasn't on the field. I remember the first month of the season, or I guess up until when he got hurt. I mean, I remember at the start of the year, I thought Patrick Payton was like this unblockable DN. He was crushing it first round. And then Relaford kind of went down. And then it seemed like that really stopped. And I kind of felt the same way for some of the interior pressure itself. I think Relaford's a guy that does a lot of the dirty work, and he's good enough to the point where you can't really key in on a guy like Patrick Payton, who's maybe your one. So and just think about the drop off we had when he went out on that side of on that edge. I like Pyburn in run defense, but my God, how many times did he miss a freaking sack? And Dylan Carpenter, hopefully he gets better. I think he's still with the team, but left a lot to be desired. That's not the guy you wanted out there last year. So prayers up for Gabe Relaford. I'm really pissed to see that. I think he was going to be a great contributor next year, and I know he'll come back better. I think he's definitely a Sunday guy, but I think we'll be okay more so this year than we were last year. Jordan Ross is a guy who a lot of these people at practice have said in terms of speed is really flash. I'm not worried too much there. I think Shanklin's a guy who they probably should have sprinkled in a lot last year when it became pretty apparent you needed some pass rushing on the other side of the ball. I think he flashed when he was actually given the opportunity to play. That was one of the more frustrating things for me last year on defense was that he didn't get more of an opportunity. Every time he played, I thought he flashed. So I think we'll be okay. Trenton Henderson's another guy, and I'll talk about some of the more freshman D linemen at the end of this video briefly. But I also heard Rufino say he really looked good. So I think he kind of gets lost in the fold of the freshman recruits as well. I think he was just barely outside of being a 5-star. He was like 30 or 40s. Yeah, I think like mid 40s in the composite for on three. So, I mean, that's elite level. That's projecting him to be like a second round pick in the NFL. We'll see. It still definitely sucks not to have Relaford, but I think you have a ton of depth on the D line this year. So I'm not too worried about it. Moving on. Next, I think the most important thing, and honestly been the most surprising thing since the start of spring ball for me is Sam Leavitt being out there doing some throwing. I haven't seen many people make a big deal out of this. No one. I was shocked when the first practice rolled around and they had the footage come out and he's out there throwing, jogging around a little bit. I don't know if I missed this at some point, but I was heavily under the impression that he was going to miss for sure most of the spring. And the hope was that maybe at the end he could do basically what I saw him doing on the first day. So at first I was excited to see it. I mean, I still am excited to see this. And before I say what I'm about to say about the quarterbacks, I just know I'm a pessimist until I see it do good, just because post 2019 LSU, so much hype and stuff has been built up for such, horrible reality. But he looks real gimpy out there to me. I don't think anyone that's out there would disagree. I'll roll some in this practice footage of him, but on the first day, we really got a good look. He was missing routes on air, which I'm going to chalk it up to him being hurt and him probably not being able to throw really for a long time, or I don't really know how that Liz Frank works, but I'm guessing he's a little rusty. But Yeah, he missed some easy throws. They have him, jogging in between like drills from station to station or whatever. He's obviously gimpy. There's zero denying that. So I am a little concerned. I've said before, that's the number one thing I'm worried about in terms of derailing next season is that Liz Frank injury affects different people in different ways. I've heard Sean O'Malley, if any of the UFC fans out there, when he like broke his foot that one fight, that injury was the Liz Frank, and he said a month or two ago that his foot's really never been the same since. But then you got guys like Matt Mock who said they came back the next year and they're maybe a little bit less mobile, but 95% the same guys. So we'll see. That's the one thing I'm a little worried about. But in terms of camaraderie and cohesion and getting on the same page with the receivers and the offense, it is good that they're out there. I just hope they're being careful with them, which I'm sure they are. And I don't mean to be too harsh on them for missing these throws, but $4 or $5 million, whatever we're paying him, I'm going to be harsh. We need to have a good return on that investment. And for the rest of the quarterbacks, you see, one thing I will say that's interesting is they're letting Landon Clark work it a lot with the ones, which is cool. Like, I heard on Monday, which would have been the 30th, he didn't have a good practice. Seemed like last week he did pretty good. I think people have said he's a lot faster than they expected. I think Moscano said he had a play in like the team period where or not, he had like a QB scramble, and he said he would have went 70 yards on touch, and he really popped in terms of speed. So that's interesting. In terms of the practice footage, I've liked what I've seen from Longstreet maneuvering in the pocket. That's good. He has a bit of a wonky throwing motion, but it seems to zip. And that's what some other people said. So it's hard to take anything away from these one-on-one drills where the quarterback's throwing, or even these light team periods where there's not a ton of contact being made. So that's really all I'll say about the quarterbacks for now, just watching Sam Leavitt's health. Briefly on the O-line, Seaton looks the part. In my last video where I talked about what I wanted to learn from this spring, the biggest storylines, two of them were who's the first team O-line when they trot out there, and same with the receivers. So O-line, it looks like it is Seaton, which everyone has said has looked amazing. And then Dylan Harper, transfer from Ole Miss, left guard. Braylon Moore, obviously at center. Right guard was Baugh, transfer from Georgia, Maryland. People said he looks really good and physical. I like that. And then right tackle was the big question mark I had. Was it going to be Stray? Was it going to be Davis? Was Harper going to kick out? Was Solomon Thomas going to get a guard? Solomon Thomas is hurt. I guess that's another thing I could have touched on. We can talk about that another time. But Weston Davis is your right tackle as of right now. So a little concerning. You got to think all the people they let go on offense, they've brought very few back. I'm hoping they see something in him. So we all remember he was a guy we all really want. I think we flipped him from A&M, or A&M was their team in the running, and we got him. One of the roughest seasons I've ever seen out of a tackle in my time watching LSU football, but they must see something in him. He's got all the traits, so it'll be interesting. It'll be really funny to me if he ends up being like a pretty solid player next year. It'd be a really bad look for Brad Davis, which now I think about, I don't know what Brad Davis is up to these days. I'm not trying to throw shade. I just genuinely don't know where he. So that's an interesting offensive line. It's really hard to read between the lines here. It's more just like lineups that I'm interested in. And then at least for the quarterbacks, you can see them throwing. And the one-on-one drills have been cool. Obviously, Jabari Mack made that super viral one-handed catch. Love to see that. But so far, there was some conflicting reports or what people are saying that are out there in terms of what the units are. I'm guessing for receiver, that's just because they're doing a lot of different rotations. I will say the one guy for sure who all the reporters have said has really looked the best, and Shaquem Jackson, the cornerback, had a good interview with Moscano on the 31st where he asked him about it, and he said he was probably like the best receiver so far. So in terms of the only people I'm hearing, the ones that are for sure out there with that first unit is him. Winnie Watkins, who was a guy who was like, I didn't know where he penciled in. I think Ruffino said his route running looks really good. He's been out there working a lot with the first team. I know they think highly of him because they brought him over, but I think it could be more so. He obviously is one of the few guys that knows the system already. And then Jackson Harris, the big receiver from Hawaii. That's kind of for sure the first three. Then I've heard, obviously, Trey Wilson or Eugene Wilson, whatever you want to call him. Another guy that people have said have popped, apparently he's one of the faster guys. And then I also heard Mothershed from someone, I can't remember who, was like the fourth or fifth receiver working in. So that was super dope. That's kind of my underrated, under the radar guy that I've been watching since we picked him up. So I would love to see him make some impact, but I think it's pretty safe to say right now your receivers are Brown for sure, Jackson Harris I think for sure because you're going to need his length. Winnie Watkins probably because he's that familiarity with this system is really going to help him out throughout this entire offseason. And then Trey Wilson, I guess. I don't know. Trey Green also could be counted as a receiver, I think. So, yeah, that's interesting. I think some of the younger guys I haven't heard too much about. I saw Flash Wright made like a great one-handed catch on the first day. Maybe if I can find that footage, I'll throw it in here. But, it's all one-on-ones. It's favored to the receivers anyway, so we'll see. I'm not trying to take too much away from it. But it is, I think we predicted before that it would be Brown. I think I predicted Brown, Wilson, and Jackson Harris would be the three. I can't remember who I said the fourth was. It might have been Mothershed. Oh, well. That's really it on offense. It's hard to take things away necessarily. I'm just interested to see in the lineups. I'm trying not to get too hyped into anybody. Defense, I think, is where a lot more of the freshmen are really going to flash. And I'll talk about them now. The D-line freshman we got, and we don't even have Lamar Brown yet. He's not coming to the summer. But, I mean, these dudes look like if you put them at the pro day and we're like, oh, this guy's draft eligible, I don't think scouts would bat an eye. Deuce Gerald's is a guy that everyone has said has looked like really, really, really good. He's massive. I think he's put on like 15, 20 pounds, they said. And his speed is still looking really good. I don't understand how he wasn't a 5-star. I think he has the all-time Georgia 7A classification sack record. So I'm not sure how playing against Buford and some of these other like powerhouse schools up there near the all-time A sack leader. I don't know how that's not 5 stars. Maybe he didn't do the camp circuit or something. I don't know, but he looks the part. Richard Anderson, I haven't heard as much about, but just in the videos, he looks massive. And I said before, Trenton Henderson is a guy I've heard a few people say looks pretty good. So in terms of the D-line, I think the Clemson kid, Green, I guess his first practice was 30th. I'm not sure why he wasn't out there the first few days. That'll be interesting to follow up on. But I think we really know where the D-line stands. I think that's going to be one of the deeper positions. Linebacker, Whit's been out. You've seen a lot of Zach Weeks, TJ Daughtery, Keys. At Star, looks like they have like Aiden Anling working some. And then Deshaun Spears, I think, is going to be the number one guy there. I want to say maybe on the first day or two, they also had Keys there. So that's interesting. I thought Benefield going into the spring would be the star, but that's another guy I want to talk about. That is who everyone is raving about, Benefield. I think that would be the most underrated pickup we have. Sounds like he's going to be an absolute beast. Man, what else? And Jakeem Jackson's interview with Moscano yesterday, he said Finney looks really good. He looks really long. Kind of reminds me a little bit shorter version of DJ Pickett did last year at the beginning. Finney, though, I'm just not. I've said this over and over. I'm not counting on him to really do anything just because I think he's like 17 years old. Right now, he should be in like spring ball for his high school team. He should still be a junior right now. He's a reclass. So I think a lot of people are penciling him in to be like the Pickett from last year and fill that like third role behind Pickett and PJ Woodland. I see that more being Jakeem Jackson, who was a guy that was banged up a little bit last year. And then they said when they practice nickel coverage, Woodland goes into the slot. Or not nickel coverage, sorry, dime coverage. Woodland goes to the nickel spot. And then Jakeem Jackson comes in and he plays that boundary. I think he's like more of a man-to-man corner, physical boundary guy. So I think that's where that shakes up. That's all we've really seen. We haven't seen too much, to be honest with you guys. One thing I say about Kiffin is he doesn't do the car salesman thing like Brian Kelly did, which I can appreciate to an extent. When they ask him questions that he's so like low tone, it almost makes it seem like he doesn't want to be there, but that's how he's always been. And it just makes me think of Brian Kelly, man. He would come up there in that suit and tie on Mondays, or he'd come in that visor or something and sell us a bill of goods. It's exciting that they're out there. What are you guys looking to see in spring ball? Anything caught your eye? There's been some highlight moments, some viral moments. My main thing is I just want to see quarterback progression, see how these young guys come along, and let's please stay healthy. I'll catch you guys in the next one.